This video was adapted from an article written by Amber Winston on Mashed.com. We tend to associate expensive menu items with better quality than the cheapest options. But is that always the case? Let's find out as I break down the pros and cons of the most expensive and cheapest meals on the Texas Roadhouse menu. Prices vary by location, but in my area as of August 2024, the Porterhouse T-bone steak is the most expensive item on Texas Roadhouse's menu at a cost of $33.99. This steak is defined as Texas-sized, and it weighs in at 23 ounces. It's served with a choice of 2 sides, from over 15 available options. I opted for creamy mashed potatoes and a house salad. While the Porterhouse T-bone is the most expensive item at Texas Roadhouse, it's a very reasonable price compared to other chains. At Outback Steakhouse, for example, the Melbourne Porterhouse rings up at $34.99 for a 22-ounce steak. What's more, Texas Roadhouse offers toppings like mushrooms and onions for free as side dishes, while Outback charges as much as an additional $2.99 for each. Therefore, while the Porterhouse T-bone is expensive by Texas Roadhouse standards, it's a great value when compared to similar chains.
When I'm hungry for the great steak of Texas, I always go to the Texas Roadhouse.
The Porterhouse T-bone steak certainly isn't the lightest option you could order at Texas Roadhouse, but that's to be expected when downing a giant steak. According to the chain's nutrition guide, it contains 1,040 calories, 54 grams of fat, 3.5 grams of trans fat, and 24 grams of saturated fat. That's over 120% of your daily recommended saturated fat amount, based on a 2,000-calorie diet. In addition, expect to incur over 130% of your daily recommended amount of cholesterol and 1,440 milligrams of sodium, which is 60% of the daily recommended amount. While getting a little extra protein in your diet is generally a good thing, the Porterhouse steak contains 139 grams of it, which is significantly higher than the daily recommended 60 to 90 grams. When you consume too much protein, you could end up contending with health problems like excessive weight gain and heart disease. And those nutritional stats don't include the side dishes, your drink, or those extra hot buttered rolls you'll undoubtedly eat. So this is a very high-calorie, high-fat, and high-sodium meal no matter how you slice it. Still, for an experience like this, it's totally normal to indulge a bit. As long as you don't do it too often, it's part of what makes eating out so fun. The Porterhouse T-bone steak is no joke in terms of how much space it takes up. The menu calls it Texas-sized after all, and that's no lie. But besides that remarkable size, I remained unsettled about the steak's dry appearance. I ordered it medium well and purchased it for carryout. The appropriate doneness and temperature of steak can be tricky to achieve sometimes, and it's entirely possible that my steak steamed in the carryout container and thereby produced drier results. Either way, I definitely wasn't as excited as I thought I'd be. As for the side dishes, I was far happier with how both of them were presented. The salad looked colorful and fresh as expected. I've always been a fan of Texas Roadhouse's salads, as I truly believe it's one of the chain's best side dish options. It certainly helps that the dressings and croutons are made in-house and always taste incredible. This time around, I sampled both the French dressing and the ranch and had high hopes for each. As for the mashed potatoes, they looked thick, rich, and creamy, and I couldn't wait to dig in. I already knew from past experience that the salad and mashed potatoes were going to prove tasty, but I was eager to see whether or not the steak was indeed as dry as it looked. So I sliced into it, and sure enough, it was overcooked and extremely tough to slice through. Once I was finally able to get my knife through it, I popped it into my mouth, not expecting much. Honestly though, it was delicious. Despite being tough and dry, the meat still had a melt-in-your-mouth factor, which I definitely didn't expect. I'm certain that when dining in, eating the steak fresh is a dynamite experience, with an even better texture than what I experienced this time. The flavor was all there as well, with just enough grilled essence to make it unbelievably enjoyable without being too much. The steak wasn't over or under-seasoned either, which worked well to allow the flavor of the beef to shine through. Also, it's worth noting that Texas Roadhouse's steak sauce is a force to be reckoned with, and its subtle heat and tangy flavor lend itself perfectly to the steak's savory flavor. The salad and 2 dressings were amazing as expected, as were the mashed potatoes. Overall, the most expensive entree proved to be an A+ experience.
I love it! I love it!
As of August 2024, the All-American Cheeseburger goes for $11.99 in my area, making it the cheapest meal on the menu at Texas Roadhouse, at least for adults. It's described as a classic American cheeseburger featuring American cheese, lettuce, tomato, and onion, all atop a large Texas-sized bun. It comes with steak fries and a pickle spear, and the fries can be substituted with another side dish at no extra cost. Unlike the Porterhouse T-bone, this burger comes with one side instead of two, which is understandable considering the low price point. When compared to a similar chain, Texas Roadhouse is offering its burger at a more than reasonable price, as Logan's Roadhouse sells a similar option with the exact same name for a few dollars more. At a cost of nearly $14, Logan's offering is basically the same exact burger. However, their version is topped with a choice of Swiss, cheddar, or American cheese, as well as sliced pickles, rather than a single slice of American cheese and a pickle spear on the side. Still, Texas Roadhouse's burger is clearly the better deal, especially since Logan's requires you to pay extra to swap out your fries for most other side dishes. Like the Porterhouse T-bone, the All-American Cheeseburger isn't exactly a healthy entree. That shouldn't be too surprising, but looking at the nutrition specifics may really make you think twice before eating this, especially if you're on a restricted diet. For starters, the cheeseburger on its own makes up as much as 82% of your daily value for sodium, with 1,970 milligrams. Shockingly enough, the fries double that up by adding another 1,970 milligrams. Add to that the 880 calories, 22 grams of saturated fat, 125 milligrams of cholesterol, and 11 grams of sugar that the burger brings to the table, and it's clear that this meal is only appropriate to have every once in a while. As a true burger and fry lover, these nutrition facts made me wince. But did they put a damper on my excitement? Absolutely not.
Name something you feel before you buy it.
Excited.
As a big burger fan, laying eyes on the All-American Cheeseburger unsurprisingly had me salivating. To start, the patty was huge, spanning far past the limits of the bun. Plus, the cheese was visibly thick, and the toppings were crisp. The bun was stealthy and seemed more than able to handle all that was packed inside. It also never looked soggy, despite the fact that it sat in a steamy to-go carton. However, if there were one thing I could change about this burger, it would be the lack of condiments. To be fair, the menu never mentioned that it came with condiments, and I didn't think to ask for any. When ordering online, there isn't anywhere to request condiments either, which is something that Texas Roadhouse should change in the future. So, while I was impressed overall with the appearance and apparent quality, the lack of condiments left me a little wanting. I ultimately, unsurprisingly, thought that the All-American Cheeseburger and fries tasted great. The latter were perfect, delightfully salty without being too crispy or too soft. Meanwhile, the burger emitted all of the natural flavor of beef without being plagued by over-seasoning. I did expect more charcoal flavor than what I got, but the description never indicated that it was char-grilled, nor did it need to be. The patty packed all of the flavor needed, even without any condiments. In addition to the flavor of the meat, it's worth noting that both the bun and cheese add another layer of yumminess. The bun was just as sturdy as it looked, but was also satisfyingly soft. As for the cheese, it packed a ton of flavor, and it's not something I'd recommend leaving off if you don't have to. Despite loving the flavor of this burger, there was one thing that irked me, and that was its dryness. Since no condiments were included, I went ahead and added mayo and ketchup from my kitchen. Though the burger was already tasty, it was so much better with the condiments. With all things considered, I definitely think the All-American Cheeseburger and fries are worth the full $11.99. In fact, it feels like a steal, considering the quality and flavor.
Great job.
Overall, I felt that both the Porterhouse T-bone steak and the All-American Cheeseburger were bargains for their prices. The former looked dry and overcooked at first blush, but after sampling it, I found it to be satisfyingly tender and delicious. The size of the steak was enormous, and the side dishes were also decently sized, making the $33.99 I spent well worth it. I felt much the same way about the All-American Cheeseburger. In fact, for the price, it was almost too good to be true. The meat was savory and flavorful, the toppings were fresh, and the cheese was thick and tasty. Like the Porterhouse steak, it was huge, with the patty much larger than the bun. The fries were thick cut and plentiful, making this an undeniable great buy. I do wish, again, that the cheeseburger came with condiments, but I'm sure you could request them at the restaurant when you pick up your order. In conclusion, both the Porterhouse steak and the All-American Cheeseburger are awesome buys for their prices at Texas Roadhouse. I recommend both of them, along with the side dishes, for a fresh and flavorful lunch or dinner.